All right, amazing. Thank you everybody for joining us. Let's jump in. Be'ezras Hashem. Hope everyone had a wonderful Shabbos and an amazing beginning of the week. Let me just make sure we're recording.
Recording in progress.
Fantastic. Okay. So I'm going to share my screen and we can continue our limud Be'ezras Hashem. In Sichos Haran, we are now up to Kuf Ayin Gimel after learning many pieces last week, and now we continue with Hashem's help. And as you'll remember, the teachings that we're learning now are much more biographical in nature. They're talking about Rebbe Nachman's life, not so much teachings from the tzaddik, but just letting us know a little bit about the greatness of the tzaddik that we're privileged enough to be learning from. What a schus. And so we continue in that vein with Kuf Ayin Gimel, and here Rebbe Nachman says the following. He says, Shamati me'anashim sha'amar l'Reb Shimon. I heard from people that Rebbe Nachman told his shamish, who was the one who really was like Rebbe Nachman's gabbai, before Rebbe Nachman came to connect with Rebbe Nachman. There was a person called Reb Shimon, and Reb Shimon was his student, Reb Shimon was his shamish. When Reb Shimon came back from having lived in the city of Grenitz for 3 years, Me'ever Agvol, which was across the border in Mamish in Russia, where Reb Shimon had been banished, and I'll just say the story outside in a minute. Reb Shimon had been sent away by Rebbe Nachman for about 3+ years, where Rebbe Nachman got upset and particular with Reb Shimon, etc. And Reb Nachman writes, I don't know this story exactly, and so I'm not going to say any more details. But it's recorded in the Sefer Sichos Haran that recorded a lot of the oral tradition of the Breslover Hasidim, that actually the story was, apparently Rebbe Nachman had lent Reb Shimon some money, and instead of returning it, which is what Rebbe Nachman expected, he went and invested it in some businesses that maybe ultimately failed, or the Rebbe wasn't able to liquidate the money and get the money back. And as a consequence, obviously there was some tikkun here. There's always something deeper with the Rebbe. It wasn't just like a monetary dispute. Rebbe Nachman said, I should really banish you. I should banish you far away from here, to the other side of the river Dan, the Dan River. And that's exactly what happened. For some reason, it became necessary for Reb Shimon to actually need to leave Medvedivka and to move to that place. And he was in a place where there was no one there. There was, as we're going to learn, there was no Jews there in that whole area. Reb Nachman's going to say in 2 paragraphs, maybe 1 in 1,000 was a Jewish person. No Jewish communities in that area. And he went through very difficult nisyonos. As we are going to, as I thought I brought that piece, I'll just tell it to you outside. Ultimately, he was there for 3.5 years, and he had a tremendous nisayon. There's really quite a stark terminology actually used to describe the nisayon, where he had to apparently, again, I don't know if this is literal or a metaphor, but it's describing the extent of the nisayon that he was mamish about to do an avera. The lashon is he had to tear his lips away from the woman that he had a nisayon with, and he was able to be mishaber, to break the Yetzer Hara, something like Yosef HaTzadik, right? Vayima'en, vayanas, vayetzi achutza, mamish, from within the nisayon, from within the moment, he was able to pull away. And after that happened, Rebbe Nachman brought him back, and he reinvited him, and that's what happened. That was the end of the 3+ years of Reb Shimon, who was away, who now came and joined the Hasidim in Medvedivka. So that's the basic story. So Omach Mazeh, because of that circumstance, Amar Rabbeinu Pamachas, Rabbi Nachman had said to him, "Ani roitze l'shalechacha shekarin farshikin." I really ought to send you away, me'ever l'nahar Dan, to a very distant place, And that's what happened, says Rebbe Nachman, v'sibu b'Hashem yisbarach sibos. HaKadosh Baruch Hu brought about various circumstances. Shebesamach ma'ayid, immediately following this story, this galgal davar, it just so happened to be, shenasar Rabbi Shimon l'sham, l'svivas nahar Dan hanal, where Rabbi Shimon had to move his family to the other side of the Dan River, shayurachik be'erech mea parsa'os, that was hundreds and hundreds of miles, the Yaiser mi Medvedivka, very, very far away from Medvedivka. Kisham Ikr Medinas Russia Ki Adua, that's mamish really in Russian territory. The Yehudam Einam Ninsam Sham Kim Echad Me'elef, that wasn't in the Ukraine, that was in White Russia, where there were hardly any Jews there. V'frat Lefnei Kama Shanim, certainly in those years. V'nas Rabbi Shimon L'Sham L'Fisha, Rabbi Shimon sort of journeyed there just for a temporary, what he thought was just going to be a little bit of time. But Hashem Yisbarach Sibev, Hashem caused Sheneskayim Divrei Rabbeinu Zal. Tzaddik Goizer, when a tzaddik says something, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Mekayim it, and that's what happened. V'huchach Rabbi Shimon L'Esakiv Sham Kama Shanim, and Rabbi Shimon had to stay there for a number of years. U'masha Avar al Rabbi Shimon ba'oisan Hashanim Yiktzur Hamoin Yiriyos. Rabbi Nachman says what Rabbi Shimon went through in those years, we would run out of paper if we wanted to record everything that he went through. He was living totally among non-Jews for many years. And he was tested very heavily with a number of very difficult trials and tribulations. In those years, while Rabbi Shimon was away, Rebbe Nachman moved from Zlati Polya, and he moved and he lived in the city of Breslov. And he had lived here for a number of years, for about 2 or 3 years at that point. And then Rebbe Shimon moved back, and he rejoined. Now when he rejoined, this is all an introduction, just a long introduction to this, when he finally came back and joined the Hasidim, now in the city of Breslov, V'amar le Rabbeinu Zal, Rebbe Nachman said to him, Da, I want you to understand, Shekimoi shayachilik etzli miyom leidasi ada yom shiyatzasa mimeni, the same way that there's a distinction in my spiritual growth from the minute that I was born into this world until the moment that you departed from me and moved away, Kimoi ken yesh chilik achshav bein hayom shiyatzasa mimeni lebein hayom hazeh. That's how great the difference is spiritually from the day that you left me 3+ years ago to where I am now. That's how Rebbe Nachman had elevated and picked up momentum as he got older, where in less and less time the Rebbe was able to progress and progress. Kolaimar, in other words, Kol Kach Allah mi Madrega la Madrega, the Rebbe had so arose from level to level, umisham lahalon yoser, and from that level even beyond, gavoya me'al gavoya lamala, higher and higher and higher, ad shenetak be'elu hashanim madregas rabbis kol kach, that just in 3 years the Rebbe had proceeded and progressed and evolved and grown so much, ad sheyish chilik etzli ben oisa azman lebein achshav kama chilik shoya ben yoyim leidasa la'oisa azman, that in 3 years he accomplished what he accomplished 20+ years prior, from the moment he was born until that moment, many years, more than 20 years, 30+ years. That's how much, when Rabbi Nachman was older, he was able to progress and proceed from one point to another point in just 3 years, what had previously took him 3 decades. So anybody who has a little bit of a brain left in their skull, you could understand a little bit of the speed and the intensity with which the Rebbe was progressing and proceeding higher and higher and higher, closer and closer to Hashem Yisbarach. Because when Reb Shimon had left Rabbi Nachman, Kfar Hayi Rabbeinu Zal be'Eretz Yisrael, the Rebbe had already lived in Eretz Yisrael. V'chol masha avral Rabbeinu Zal koidim zeh v'chol hagdolos v'anerois v'aneflois pile plois shezachal ha'hasig ha'sagas hatzumas v'anerois shal nishmu v'leniru ba'olam koidim shah haya be'Eretz Yisrael v'chulu v'acher kach kol hatzaros v'asrap kois. Everybody knows all of the incredible life circumstances the awesome wonders of what the Rebbe was able to reveal before Eretz Yisrael. And then, right, that was before. And then afterwards, when he came back, all the challenges and difficulties and everything that Rebbe Nachman attained and achieved and toiled and worked for. That the Rebbe had before Eretz Yisrael until he succeeded in attaining Eretz Yisrael. And then when he returned, and over there Rebbe Nachman achieved and attained what he was able to attain. And he said, the Rebbe had said whatever he knew before Eretz Yisrael is like nothing. The Rebbe only got to Eretz Yisrael toward the end of his life, in the last decade. And the Rebbe said everything that he achieved until that point, which was a tremendous amount, was like nothing. He was embarrassed. That's the level that he reached, that he attained, where he was looking at the madrigas that he reached before Eretz Yisrael, and from the standpoint of post Eretz Yisrael, it was considered like nothing. Which we'll get back to in a minute, because I want to learn a little bit about that from a different source, which we'll see in a moment. And then after that, the Rebbe rose from level to level, every day, every hour. It had already been a number of years after Eretz Yisrael, when Reb Shimon left. So if from the moment he was born up until Eretz Yisrael was one thing, and then from Eretz Yisrael until when Reb Shimon left, and the Rebbe said in the 3 years since Reb Shimon left and came back, he achieved more than he achieved from when he was born, little baby, to all of the Torah that he achieved before Eretz Yisrael, and then what he gained in Eretz Yisrael, he was able to accomplish in 3 years. Re'eva havin v'habit, come and see and understand be'eze malu u'madrega amaraz, what incredibly elevated and lofty level the Rebbe must have been standing and accessing and attaining and achieving. And after all of that, a little bit more than 3 years, Amar, he said, he had achieved more in those 3 years than he had achieved from when he was a little baby, inclusive of his journey to Eretz Yisrael and returning. After that, it was just like meteoric, like a rocket, just higher and higher and higher, levels that we can't even imagine. And so here, I brought it in the wrong place in the source sheets, but I just wanted to read a little bit from Sichos Haran on the topic of his journey to Eretz Yisrael, which was so mysterious. So it's a record of Rebbe Nachman's journey to that place. And over here it says, this is in Sichos Haran, another sefer describing Rebbe Nachman's life and the Rebbe's greatness. And it says, Eretz Yisrael haya isek b'Torah u'b'tefillah. In Eretz Yisrael, he spent his whole time learning, davening. Ubechal yom kasa ba'atzmi torasai, and every day he was writing his own Torah. V'ayim mispar ma'oid ma'oid. And the Rebbe was saying mispar. He was priding himself by saying Sha'achiluk ben Torah's chutz la'aretz Torah's Eretz Yisrael k'rechaik mizrach mimarev, that the Torah of Eretz Yisrael and the Torah of outside of before Eretz Yisrael and the Torah of Eretz Yisrael is as distant from east to west. I mean, it's just two different, completely different worlds. Now every day, every day, all the tzaddikim of Eretz Yisrael and simple people would come to hear Rebbe Nachman's Torah, which was so awesome and wondrous. What a chiddush to hear from the Rebbe his own Torah. Who can imagine? So Pam Echas, one day, Ba'ilav Echad Me'agedolim, one of the Gedolei Adar in Eretz Yisrael, doesn't say the name, Sheyachashav Ma'oid Be'eretz Yisrael Ubechutz La'aretz, who was respected both in Eretz Yisrael and in Chutz La'aretz, V'kilsu, they used to praise this person. Shu baki b'chol hashas kamat bal peh. He knew the whole shas almost by heart. V'shu gam kim imar Kabbalah, and he was also a big mekubal, unbelievable gadol. So the gadol came to Rabbi Nachman. Ubal Rabbeinu Zal. The gadol came to the Rebbe, and he told Rabbi Nachman, please send everybody out of the room. He didn't want anybody there. There was nobody in the room. Only the person that Rabbi Nachman traveled with, who was his mishares, only that person was in the room. He stayed, everybody else left. So what happened? So what did the gadol want from the Rebbe? So the gadol began to press upon Rabbi Nachman. And he said, we know that you didn't come here for some small reason. Like people come to Eretz Yisrael, which is just for small things. So that we can, like the school of walking 4 amas, and then being a ben olam haba. We know you're not a simple person, and we know you didn't come for a simple reason. You came here for a great and awesome reason. You came with moichin the godless, with an expanded mind. You wanted to accomplish something here. Al Kain, so he said, what we want to know is what is it that you're working on that you came here? What project is it? What are you trying to accomplish here for the future? What's the mystery and the secret of your journey to Eretz Yisrael? What was it that you wanted to accomplish in the service of Hashem? And then this person, this Gadol Adar, who doesn't say the name here, but the Gadol was willing, he said to Rabbi Nachman, I'll be your servant. Physically, spiritually, whatever you want, I'm here for you. Just tell me why it is that you came. So Rabbi Nachman told him, he did nafshi, my beloved friend, my brother. Don't pain me with this. Don't pressure me to tell you. It's not an easy thing for me to reveal to you why I came here and what avoida I'm trying to work on. Maybe I've even sworn in some higher place, or I'm sworn to secrecy as to what it is that I'm here to accomplish. So then, but he wouldn't stop. And then the Gadol was pressing upon him again. Why did you come to Eretz Yisrael? Why did you come? Please reveal the reason why you journeyed with such incredible difficulty and challenge, and you made it to Eretz Yisrael. We know you came here for a reason. Why did you come? Va'amar, and he said, She'elasenu ubakashasenu al kopanim. Okay, Yilamdeinu Rabbeinu eze chidish mechidusha v'nachmadav ani'im masher chananei Hashem. Okay. If you're not going to tell us straight out why you came to Eretz Yisrael, at least teach us a little bit of Torah. Let us taste some of the sweet Torah that you're revealing, that you're writing, that you're thinking about. We don't want, just stop asking you for no reason. We want to be inspired, that the Rebbe can give us a new taste and a new path and open a new door of perceiving the greatness of Hashem and the truth of life and why we're on this planet and what we're here to do. And then maybe through the Torah that you'll teach us, maybe there will be some hint as to why it is that you came to Eretz Yisrael. Immediately Rabbi Nachman was inflamed with this incredible flickering torch of the sparks of the fire of Hashem. His whole face started to like a flame, like a fire was burning up. Umachman says slavas tisamer saris roishai. And because of his eslavas, his hair was standing up straight on his head. He took his hat off and he threw it across the room. He was like in a frenzy, like. And then finally he started to speak. Then he said, "Hayadatem soid kavanas hatfilin." Do you know the Arizal's mystical intentions that a person's supposed to have in mind when they put on tefillin? So the Gadol, because he was a Gadol Adar, he was a huge Talmud Chacham, he knew Kabbalah, he knew Shas, he started to recount, to tell over some of the Kabbalistic intentions of tefillin. Amar Loi, Rebbe Nachman said, no, lav. No, Loi ze adar shel kavanas tefillin. This is not what I mean. You don't know the kavanas of tefillin. The kevan she'einchem yodim soid kavanas tefillin, because you don't know the secrets of kavanas tefillin. Einchem yodim soid arba rucha shel Eretz Yisrael. You don't either know the secret of the 4 directions of Eretz Yisrael. Va'achshav aschi legalos lechem ezer remez mizeh. Now I will reveal to you a little bit of this, a little bit of this secret. Vayehi kasher hischel ledaber. Then when he started to speak, hischel latzes dam migroinoi. Blood started pouring out of his throat. Va'amala chacham anal. And then he said to him, Ata ru'u beinechem ki ein maskimim min hashamayim legalos lechem davar. They're not allowing me from Shamayim to reveal this to you. The secret of Rabbi Nachman coming to Eretz Yisrael, Side Kamas Vanilla. This is the best insight that we have into why the Rebbe went. Something to do with Kavanas Tefillin and the Arba Ruchas of Eretz Yisrael. That's as far as he got. So v'tekev k'shara Chacham anal zois be'inav. When the Chacham saw this with his own eyes, Nenalei Roisha, he nodded. Ubikesh oisem ma'od sheyim chalei mashe triachas kol kach. He begged Rabbi Nachman for forgiveness, and he was totally bewildered. And he didn't want to leave until he secured Rabbi Nachman's forgiveness. So this was the Rebbe's journey to Eretz Yisrael. It's impossible for us to imagine what he accomplished there, what he accomplished for Jewish history by entering into that land, the yichud of Yesod, Tzadik Yesod Olam and Eretz as Malchus. Rabbi Nachman entering into Eretz Yisrael is the Indian of the Tzaddik entering into Malchus. Yesod and Malchus, it's the greatest yichud in the world. And who knows if Rabbi Nachman didn't pave the path for everything that's unfolding now in Eretz Yisrael. Hashem should bring us all back home. Be'ezus Hashem. We should see the Geula. Who knows? Only after Mashiach came, we'll understand the secrets of Jewish history. We'll understand who did what and what was the cause of what effect and what led to what. And it's impossible for us to know now, because our eyes are blinded. But the little bit that each person is able to know for themselves what Rebbe Nachman was and what Eretz Yisrael is and how Jewish history unfolded from that point onward. Kol chad lefum ad b'shar b'libei. Everybody can believe what they want to believe. Everybody could understand what they want to understand. Okay, so here we come to the next teaching, which is Kuf Ayin Dalid, on a very similar theme. And he writes like this: Shamati Rabbi Shimon Hanal, I heard from the aforementioned Rabbi Shimon, Sha'amadar Rabbeinu Zal Poi Bresel Seif Yamav, that at the end of Rabbi Nachman's life he said the following thing. He said, K'moi sha'ata roya oisi, just like you see me now. All that which I toiled and put in effort and I struggled and I arrived, all of my avodah at what I did from when I was a youth, when I was a child, when I was a baby until now. Ata, he said, now at this point in my journey, I can accomplish all this in one day. And at a later point in time, Amalai, he told him, Sha'ata now I could accomplish this all in 1 hour. And eventually he got to a point where he said, Sha'ata I could accomplish it in 1 minute. It's impossible for us to imagine this. decades of toiling, decades of the highest avodas, spoidados, learning, davening, Mesiras Nefesh, Sigufim, like, we can't imagine that. And at the end of the Rebbe's life, every minute was that. Until the end. Maybe at the end it was every second, until it was every millisecond, until the system just glitched. He couldn't get any higher. And that's what he said. He said that, but Pamali, he said, the reason why, he said, I'm leaving this world is because I cannot possibly get any higher in a body. So Rebbe Nachman just clarifies, he says, understand how extreme these words are. He had already achieved all of the great madrigas that we know he achieved. He said that he had already attained the level in relation to which everything that he achieved before that was le'nechshav l'klum. He was on such a high madriga. Even though what he had achieved prior to that was also great, was so great. And that happened again and again and again. Like we just learned, even before Eretz Yisrael, he was on such a high level. After he had been in that place, he had achieved what he achieved, which is a total mystery, like we learned. Like we said, all of what he achieved before Eretz Yisrael was considered in his eyes like nothing, and he was embarrassed by it. And then afterwards, he kept on rising higher and higher and higher without measure. What the mouth cannot say and what the heart can't imagine. As was revealed in the stories that we told earlier. And then he said this, that every hour, every minute, he's able to achieve everything until that minute by minute. Then you can have a little bit of an inkling of who this person was. I also heard in his name that he said that when a person achieves what's called das hashalem, perfect enlightenment, perfect awareness of the true reality, a person could accomplish in a quarter hour and 15 minutes what someone else it would take 70 years to accomplish. A person who achieves das shalem could achieve this in 15 minutes. Again, dvarim stumim v'chasumim, totally hidden words, just really impossible to understand. Okay, here we come to Sichos Haran Kuf Ayin Hey. And the Rebbe said, Koidem Eretz Yisrael Amar, before the Rebbe had been in Eretz Yisrael, he said, Eini yoidea echat tzadikim oisim pidyon. I don't know how the tzadikim do this thing called making a pidyon. Pidyon is a kind of spiritual protection that tzaddikim could bring about on account of people who are connected to them or coming to them, who have some kind of gzar din. And there's a Kabbalistic process that Rebbe Nachman teaches about in a number of places as to how to sweeten the judgments from upon a person, and that's called making a pidyon. And we're just going to learn a little bit from Likutei Moharan, and then we'll get back to the teaching from Sichos Haran, which is on the topic. And the Rebbe over here explains a little bit about what this idea of a pidyon is. And he says the following, sheyesh esrim va'arba mine pidyonos. There are 24 kinds of pidyonos. Ki yesh esrim va'arba batei dinim. Because there are 24 courts in Shamayim. Ukeneged kol beis din ubeis din yesh pidyon miyuchad lahamtek hadin sheyesha. In accordance with each of the 24 courts, there are 24 different pidyonos like a lawyer, sort of needs to understand the legal ins and outs of each particular legal system to be able to make an argument that's relevant for that system. And that's the pidyon miyucha that needs to be made in each of these 24 courts. Sometimes it doesn't work. Not everybody knows all 24 of the court systems. Maybe he knows some of them, he doesn't know all of them. Unless you're an expert in all of the 24 kinds of pidyonos, you might make a pidyon that's going to work for one of the court cases, but not the other. Of the court system, rather, but not the other. So it might not work. Rabbi Nachman said, there's one kind of sweetening of the judgment. It's collective. It incorporates, and it's like, it's universal. It works in all of the courts. A person can sweeten the judgment in all of the 24 courts. But in order to bring that about, a person needs to know the secret of Eis Ratzon, of moments of favor, moments where it's a revelation of what's called Bechinas Eskalas Meitzach HaRatzon, a revelation of the forehead, a light that's even beyond any of the openings on the face. It's a hidden light that just is essential. It doesn't come through any tzimtzum. It's an essential light. One of the examples of a time like this, Kiyadua, is Kemai b'Shabbos b'Mincha. Like on Shabbos, by Mincha time, it's called Hiskalas Meitzach HaRatzon. Mincha, after Mincha and Shalosh Shudas time on Shabbos, is an extraordinary time of Eis Ratzon. There is being revealed an Ar Echad Pashat, the Ein Echad Derachme, the singular eye of mercy. And a person could achieve in those moments extraordinary things. And I bless us to be in the right setting, because it all depends on the setting. It depends where you are. A person could also waste that time. But if a person is in a holy setting, with a tzaddik, and people are really Ovdei Hashem, where there's no talking, and there's just quiet and dark, and singing and meditating, Rava de Ravin, it's called. It's the Eis Ratzon of Ratzon. Bechinas va'ani tfilasi, etc. Eis Ratzon. David HaMelech wants to daven at a time of Eis Ratzon because he knows that he needs to sweeten all of the courts cases and all the 24 court systems, and that could be achieved at the Eis Ratzon. But the Rebbe said, "Achafilu at tzadikim, even great tzadikim, lav kol echad yodea zeh pidyon." Not everybody knows how to do this pidyon. And then he revealed that v'loy nimsa kiyem chad b'dara sheyeda zeh pidyon. There's only one person in every generation who knows how to sweeten all the judgment. Because there are so many different kinds of judgment. There are so many different kinds of challenges that people go through. And some tzaddikim are able to sweeten some issues and help for this or help for that or help for different facets and aspects of a person's life and a person's spiritual journey. But then there's a tzaddik, and obviously he wasn't revealing this for no reason. He's of course talking about himself. There is a tzaddik, just one in every generational era, Sheyeda Zeh HaPidyon, who could bring about this universal tikkun, the tikkun haklali, that's able to rectify all of the various challenges, all of the various issues that people experience, who's able to provide advice, that's able to guide a person in the ups and the downs, no matter what. A person can find something that can help provide them with clarity. And so this is what the Rebbe is speaking about over here. So before he went to Eretz Yisrael, the Rebbe said, I don't know how the tzaddikim do a pidyon, Ki tzrichim leida, like we just learned, kol eser me'arba batei din. A person needs to know all of the 24 court systems in Shemayim, like we just learned. Ki kishmeviyam ha-pidyon, because when a person brings this pidyon, when a person tries to advocate on behalf of a chassid, a talmid, you have to know which court system is being done. This person is judging this person. Like we just said, it's possible to make the pidyon and the hamtaka, the sweetening of the judgment, that's relevant for one court system, but the person's being judged in an entirely different system which has different protocols and different laws. So a person needs to know which court system this person's being judged in, so that the tzaddik could be able to be mamtik that din in the right place. Says the Rebbe, and this again was before Eretz Yisrael. So now imagine, right, what madriga he reached after Eretz Yisrael, because after he came to Eretz Yisrael, he looked back on all of the madrigas and he was embarrassed by them because he had attained a whole other universe. But the Rebbe said, B'peh maleh, Ani yodeya kol ha'eser va'arba batei dinim. I know all 24 of the batei din. Va'ani yochal lasos apiletzia. I'm able to make an appeal. Right? Apiletzia is an appeal. Mi beis din lebeis din. And I can bump one a judgment. I can make an appeal, and I can send it to another court system. Adar eser va'arba batei dinim. To all of the other 24. I'm going for a second opinion. I'm making an appeal. I don't think this is right. And I can force it to be moved to a different court. And I can have it go from court to court, and this will certainly help. The judgment is pushed off, and once it's pushed off and it's not so severe because it wasn't just decided, then things become a little bit easier. I can find some room where I can make a difference. Because by that time the person did maybe some kind of mitzvah. Even if that doesn't help, I can do what's called an andensenya, which is l'shlech hadavar la'keisar ba'atzmai. Said Rebbe Nachman, I can manage to push this judgment out of the court system entirely and to send it straight up to the president for a pardon. I can push this out of the whole system up to somebody who can override the system, like Kesar Ba'atzmai, which is Hashem B'chvoida Ba'atzmai. And this is something such a big avoida. No, who's able to do that? Who's able to circumvent the entire system of Midas Hadin and to bring things up to the shirish, to the root? Says the Rebbe, no one in this generation knows how to do that. And get this, because this is quite radical. This is pre-Eretz Yisrael. Nobody, no human being has ever known this until me. Exactly how to accomplish this, and to properly give kavod to the Kesar. You can't just send everything. It's a very, very difficult diplomatic dance to be able to know which cases and how and when and Gam Amar. And then Rebbe Nachman also added, I don't know how they are pretending to do a pidyon. In order to be able to do pidyon, you have to know the secret of what the Kohen Gadol was doing with the Ser HaMishtaleach, with the goat on Yom Kippur that's sent to Azazel. And again, mysteries. But the reason that he spoke in this way, he wanted to give us a little bit of an inkling into who he was and how authoritative his Torah was. Not all tzaddikim are created equal. The Rebbe says in Torah Samach Vav and Likutei Moharan, Yesh harbe tzadikim, there are many tzadikim. But v'yesh nekudas ha'emes shebein ha'tzadikim. Among the many tzadikim, there's what's called a nekudas ha'emes. And just because, you hold one sefer and another sefer, these are words. It could be even have the same amount of pages, and it looks the same. Okay, this is a sefer, that's a sefer. Not all Sfarim are created equal. Not all tzaddikim are created equal. And the Rebbe was trying to impress upon us what we had here. Who we have to be able to connect to and to draw from. What a privilege. And I'll just close just a little bit early today also. I didn't bring enough sources. This is a theme that I see is, so we'll have to plan for that next week and bring much more material. But I'll just read to you over here from Sichos Haran, where he says something fascinating. He says, Me'inyan sheyachal lasas an dansenya v'l'shleach hadavar la'keser ba'atzmai. With regard to this that the Rebbe said, he knows the secret of being able to send an appeal out of the court system entirely and up to the Kesar. V'amar az shezeh ma sha'atem royim. He said, this is why sometimes you see sometimes you see me writing something down on a paper and burning it. Ani shaleach hadavar al yedei ha'ashan. I'm sending the words up through the smoke. Mysteries upon mysteries. I mean, he was living in a different planet. Mysteries. Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai rimes ksas mizabazayar. Rabbi Shimon hints to this avodah in the Zohar Kodesh, and you had other tzaddikim also who were always busy burning their Chidushei Torah. I think maybe the Chidushei Arim or the Kotzker Rebbe, and the other tzaddikim who had this inyan. It's hard to know, it's Sheamus. Like, how do you... tzaddikim, they had their own inyan. But this is a little bit of a window into what the Rebbe was accomplishing. And it goes back to that Sicha that we learned also a couple of weeks back about Rebbe Nachman saying that even after I'm buried, the gap between this world and the next world to a tzaddik is so small, because tzaddik, like we said, is manda achid shmai va'ara. So he told his daughter, whenever you come to my caver and you call out Abba, Abba, I'm right here. Because to the tzaddik, like we said then in that shiur, all of the days of his life, Shamayim is right here. So he can send things to the Kesar with some, with smoke. Like the spiritual reality was present, and he was living in that world. He was intimately familiar with the 24 Batei Din in Shamayim. He what was it? Which tzaddik? I can't remember right now. Who said Nahorin li shvilin derki k'shvilin denaradai. Right, that the roads, the road system of Shamayim, right, all of the spiritual pathways are as familiar to me as the roads of my own neighborhood. These were our tzaddikim. And when we find a tzaddik who speaks about things like this, who tells us about his madrigas, it's just a remarkable thing. And it behooves us to appreciate that, to respect where this Torah is coming from, out of what kind of soul this Torah is coming from. And a tzaddik whose whole inyan was pidyon, his whole inyan was being paida nefashas mireda shachas. He was redeeming us. He was redeeming shvuyim, all of us who are trapped in one way or another. That was the Rebbe's whole inyan, was pidyon shvuyim. The Rebbe's whole inyan was being misakin things, was fixing, and was finding zechus. And even though already the Gzar Din was decided, I was actually just learning a whole Gemara earlier. It's quite interesting, actually. Kiss from Hashem. I was learning a whole Gemara earlier in Gittin about this very Nakuda, about whether or not it is possible for a person after the Beis Din has already been, he's chayiv misa. If they find a schus, they could change the din. Let's get into a conversation of how a person is becheskas chai, right? Like, do we still assume after the Beis Din has put out? So we want to know if we don't hear anything else, we don't know what happened to him, is his wife mutter or not, right? Can we assume that he's dead, right? Or does she still need a get? And the Gemara says no. The Gemara says maybe somebody can find the Sichos, and if somebody can find the Sichos, then they'll retract the judgment. And this was the Rebbe's thing, finding a Sichos. Yeah, okay, this is what one Beis Din said. We'll go for a second opinion, push it to another Beis Din. And then from that Beis Din to that Beis Din. And in the meantime, the person's doing mitzvahs. And in the meantime, there's more Zechusim, and the Tzaddik's able to use that. And then really, if need be, the Tzaddik can bypass the whole system. He can find a revelation of Eis Ratzon, where HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, V'chanoisi as asher achain, v'richamti as asher rachim, where there's an haga from HaKadosh Baruch Hu called Atik Yoimin, which is beyond the system of din, which is beyond Zeir Anpin, Arik Anpin, a place of total rachamanos, Keser Elyon. And a tzaddik who knows how to channel that can bring about the pidyon, irrespective of what kind of court system a person's stuck in. This was our Rebbe. This was his whole inyan of going to Eretz Yisrael, was to redeem the world, was to make that yichud of Yisod and Malchus, to be miyachid kutchabrichu shchinte, to prepare the ground, kipshutai mamish, to prepare the ground, and we're still in that avodah now. We're still in that avodah now. The Meginei Aretz, those who are protecting the land. We're still in that avodah. We're preparing the ground for a brighter world, for a sweeter world. And we just have to hold that dear, all the time. That even in our gevura, and even in whatever it is that needs to be done, bottom line is it's to be megala chesed, That's all we want. We have to operate out of that place, out of ava, like the tzaddikim did. And then Be'ezras Hashem will be zocha to prepare the ground, like we said, for all of Am Yisrael to return to Artzeinu HaKadosh Be'ezras Hashem, which is longing. Rachel mavak al beneha. Rachel is crying over her children that we should all return to Eretz Yisrael. V'shavu banim l'gvulam Be'ezras Hashem. And then we'll just be walking in the footsteps of Rabbeinu HaKadosh, who said, wherever I walk, I'm walking to Eretz Yisrael. And he finally made it. And he made it. And he was there. And he conquered the land. And then after him, you open the gates. And everything that's unfolded since then, and everything that will unfold from now until Mashiach comes, we're living it. I mean, this is it. We are living in Mamish Geula times. We should be zeichet to see it with our own eyes. We should be zeichet to feel the soil with our own feet. And B'karav Mamish, we should be reunited with our Rebbe, who we love and miss, even though we never met him. We miss him dearly. Okay, Ashreinu, thank you so much for joining, everybody. I deeply appreciate it. It's such a privilege to learn with you. And we'll continue next week. Be'ezras Hashem Yisbarach. Ashreinu. Thank you so much for joining. Wishing everybody an amazing rest of your week. Kol Tov, thank you. All the best. Ani haben v'ata ha'av sheli shekol kach ohev oti ha'av sheli melech chai v'kayam Al kol neshima she'ani